Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Way back in the 18th century, an English poet, Alexander Pope, said, "For forms of government let fools contest. Whatever is best, administered is best." Yes, that's right. People by and large want to be administered, governed, guided. But after the main issues of law and order, habitation, food have been resolved, and the people think of their democratic rights. And as Tilk said at one time, self government is no substitute. Sorry, good government is no substitute for self government. When you are self governing, which is a base of democracy, then you have a satisfaction that even if you have done something wrong, you are liable for that. So, what does it mean for the countries today? That is a system enshrined in the constitution. And Delhi, the capital city of India, has been a problem for governance, especially when the different political parties held power in the province, which is a state, and the federal government as a center. In the beginning, it was just Delhi administration till 1991. LG was the final authority, but then came the law that it was a union territory with an elected chief minister. I remember BJP at one time had chief executive council. At that time, Delhi didn't have the chief ministers. They had chief councillor, executive councillors, and executive councillors. So basically, a part of the bureaucracy. They were elected, but they had no rights. And all the rights vested in the lieutenant governor. And at that time, BJP, it wasn't BJP, it was Jansang, used to cry hoarse, saying that such government is not there. It's a dictatorial, it's a bureaucratic form of government. And the chief executive council must have the full rights as a chief minister. In 1991, the whole thing changed. But then something still remained with the center. And I have always been saying that the capital city must be under the federal government. There are certain reasons for that. For example, simple. You have a demonstration going on against a foreign country. Now, if the party ruling the province or the state of Delhi is in favor of the demonstration, they will not even send police force to check it. And that can be an international diplomatic problem. India's capital to be governed needs a shared vision. It needs maturity. So, the National Capital Territory Act of 1991, when it was introduced, there was a lot of objection because the chief minister didn't have the power on the police, he didn't have the power on the DDA, and he didn't have the power on law and order. Basically, it was a diarchy, the British system that they had introduced in Bangladesh, Bengal at that time. And then there's a diarchy, 50% with the elected government, balanced with the governor of Bengal. And this is exactly what happened. So in July 2018, Supreme Court judgment came, five judicial bench gave a judgment, and they said, no, there is something wrong with the National Capital Territory Act of 1991. So They had the objections, and in purporting to do so, the government instituted a bill which planted several curbs on the Legislative Assembly of Delhi and the Council of Ministers. The Supreme Court unanimously had said, and the order is 536 pages long, clause by clause. They have said that the difference between the constitutional arrangement designed for Delhi is not at par with the other union territories, say like Goa, Daman, Diu, Pondicherry. So the 69th constitutional amendment, which had set up Delhi administration, converted Delhi administration to national capital of Delhi. It is constitutional amendment, 69th constitutional amendment, and an Article 239A was introduced. The amendment envisioned a representative form of government with officers reporting to the Lieutenant Governor. There were no ministers earlier. So after 1991, the constitutional amendment, the parliament enacted a new law, new act, NCT, National Capital Territory of Delhi. And it is clause 2 of that amendment that the Supreme Court accords overriding primacy. Because it's there, that constitution refers to an obligation to establish a legislative assembly with elected representatives at par with the legislators in other provinces like in Haryana, UP. But here they didn't have that power. Article 239B of the Constitution, where Parliament has discretion whether or not to create a legislature. Now there is a dichotomy. Parliament has created a legislature, but the legislature doesn't have the same rights. So the Delhi legislature did not have the right to legislate on police, on public order, and on land. And these three subjects remain under the state to be administered by the Lieutenant Governor, barring a case of difference of opinion. And in that case, it was to go to the president. And he was not interested with independent decision-making powers. Let's be very clear. He has to act either on the aid and advice of the chief minister or on the aid and advice of the president. So he is just a puppet. So the Supreme Court said that this should be an exception, not the rule. Federalism and constitutional balance must be exercised. So what do? The ground realities have to be faced. And the first-hand knowledge of working, I've seen the working of the administration very closely, personally. Both at the time of Delhi administration, when the chief minister was called chief executive councillor, and when it was called the chief minister. And in these times, the intense polarization was not there. Even when the parties controlling these were different, it was still a certain cooperative thing. And people could see that both the governments were working hand in hand. They were landmark actions. Can you believe it? The privatization of power by the unbundling the Delhi Electricity Board, the flagging off of Delhi Metro, and it was a partnership between the federal government, the central government, and the Delhi government. And mind you, the parties were different. At one time, it was Congress controlling Delhi and BJP controlling center. At other times, BJP controlling Delhi and Congress controlling the center. But they worked in concert and we had excellent results in some areas. They converted the whole fleet of the public transport buses to CNG. The unit area method of property tax was brought in amendment, gave enormous relief to the harassed householders. Daily cooperative societies that brought fresh air into the murky functioning of the cooperative societies. So the complete cooperation between the federal and the central government. And it was possible because there was a shared vision, there was civility and respect. Path-breaking bills passed like the prohibition of smoking act, non-smokers' health protection was the first for the whole country. Then, medical council, nursing council, and others. So then the things change. And the Supreme Court refers to these changes, calls them anarchy. Now, there was an attack in the night on the chief secretary at the official residence of the chief minister, and the chief minister did not protect the chief secretary. They were beating him, and then for 9 days, the chief minister and the other minister were having a demonstration at Raj Niwas, the governor's place. The insistence on acceptance of the Jan Lokpal bill and department demand for statehood for Delhi, besides starting new corruption cases against those people who are not even in the employment of Delhi administration. So whole thing was becoming a state of complete anarchy. Now what to do? Either you have a state, a full-fledged state, or you just wipe off the so-called state legislature and make them, as we were earlier, a bureaucratic system. And to ensure that this happens again, at least partially, then the government thought of amendment. But then this contradicts the inherent right of the legislature to frame rules for their own proceedings. It requires the government to have the LG opinion on all the issues of the executive, and which is not done because LG is an agent of the federal government. So things could not happen. Now, what to do in that case? As I said, you cannot have a city which is capital of the country to be converted into a part of independent province because of the inherent needs. And if you can't have that, you also cannot, absolutely you cannot deny people the right of self-government. Delhi population is more than population of some countries of Europe and some big countries, Paraguay and others. It is about 1,300 square kilometers area. Now, Washington, D.C., which is a capital city, has about 400 square kilometers. And they're doing very well in that. So, the idea came to me, why not convert? There are two options which the government should have done. I don't know why they were bound to have Delhi state as a state. It is within the rights of the federal government to change and alter the boundaries of the state. So the two options which the government should have adopted is one, carve out this area, which would be New Delhi Municipal Committee, cut off some areas, and the balance would be state of Delhi, make it a full-fledged state on the same lines as Punjab, Haryana, UP are. The chief minister having the same power, the legislature having the same power. And as I said, it will still be bigger than a lot many countries. And people would be happy that they are having their own government. What was wrong with that? You could have, say, about 400 square kilometer area, comprising NDMC minus the area, say, of Sant Vihar, minus the area of golf links. They could have gone to Delhi. So basically, diplomatic enclave and Lutyens Delhi. They should have been a part of the New Delhi, you could have called it, and that's the capital city that should be managed directly by the federal government, and you could appoint an administrator for that, and a municipal corporation, of course, for day-to-day work. That would have been the sound option. But then there's another option as well, which could have been there. And I failed to understand the government didn't do it. That was joint parts of the adjoining parts of Delhi with Rajasthan, Haryana, and UP. For example, anything south of Shadra could be given to UP or even Shadra. So all that across Jamuna could be given to UP. On the Gurgaon side, this Dwarka and other areas, Bijwasan, Rajouri Ghat and others, they could be given to Haryana. So some part could have been given to Haryana, some part given to UP, and about 500 square kilometers left separately, which could have been the capital city of India. That would be still better because you will be saving money on the complete infrastructure for the state legislature. It will be certain MLAs who will be elected to those either to UP or to Haryana. And it will be responsible. Then again, it will solve certain problems. For example, Delhi has a running dispute with Haryana about the supply of water. When these parts become a part of Haryana, then it's a bounden duty of Haryana to give them water. And the federal government escapes that. I fail to understand why these simple things could not be done. Unfortunately, the political leadership in India is myopic. With all the regard that I have for Modi as a capable, visionary prime minister, I'll still say that what's happening here is not sensible. What is required is a pragmatic approach. And it would have been quite pragmatic to divide Delhi, keep the capital city, and siphon off the portions to Haryana or to UP and to UP rather, and thereby have a fully competent state. I don't think that the legislation which has come up now, which has been introduced by the president, will hold up to the judicial review even. There's going to be some case saying that this law, the new act, which received a accent of the signatures of the president day before yesterday. We cannot deny that the amendment to NC Act, transaction of business rules, need to be altered. But you cannot change the constitution. And constitution is very clear, the directive principles and the fundamental rights. Self-government is right. So the self-government right means that the state must have full-fledged power. You cannot deprive crores of people from their right to have their representation. So the best would be, or as I said, there are two options. Let the government take any option. But the way they have done it is spoiling the sanctity of the constitution, and it is going to create more problems. I don't think there'll be a shared vision ever in the state of affairs there is. And maturity is simply not there. Imagine the chief minister sitting on dharnas. That's not done. But I also imagine that the governor interferes in everything, which is not done. Imagine the legislature calling the CEOs of multinationals to see whether they're corrupt or not, which is not in their right. So there has been, I would call it, a Mad Hatter's Tea Party here in Delhi. And the constitution has been violated once and again. Would the new act in any way change the situation? Honestly, I don't think so. The two viable options which I have given are appropriate one, and if Modi has vision, which he has, I'm sure they'll implement one of the two suggestions to save the Delhiites from the perpetual headache and also to project a more cohesive vision for the country that it does believe in democracy in the ultimate sense. Thank you.